Perfect. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our 17th edition for our Developer Officer Hours. So really glad to see you all here. My name is Darlisa. I will be your host today. So today we have a very good presentation lineup for you, where Giovanni Gargiulo, he'll be presenting us a super exciting topic: enhance the Cardano token metadata registry to support on-chain metadata, CIP68. So Giovanni is going to talk us through a few key areas. So he starts with a quick intro on the token metadata registry, what it is, how it works, an overview of the CIP25 and CIP68, which are two of the most popular metadata standards. And then finally, he's going to use this powerful tool that's called EAS Store to index the CIP68 token metadata registry. So just a quick reminding, so the first 30 minutes of this call, while Giovanni is going to be doing the presentation, this will be recorded. And then the last 30 minutes that will be unrecorded, that will give you some space to freely ask any questions. So if you have any questions for Gio, I would say if you can ask in the end of the presentation, that would be great. So without further ado, Gio, the floor is yours.
Hello, thank you very much, Darlisa, for the beautiful introduction. I hope this the presentation is going to be up to the standard of the introduction, and I'm not going to bore you too much. Right, so let's get stuck into this. So we recently got a request from community to extend the token metadata registry to cater for a very popular standard that came up a couple of years ago. That is the CIP68 for token metadata. Basically, what happens is that this is like the slides. So why do we even need a token metadata registry? The reason why we need a token metadata registry is because on Cardano, whenever we create a new token, can either be a non-fungible token, and so an NFT, or can be a fungible token, like the tokens of, I don't know, like a token of DEX or the token of a project, or also semi-fungible token, but that's out of the scope of the conversation today. Whenever we create or we mint, we say in jargon, a new token, we cannot describe the token monetary policies. So we can say, for instance, how many decimals, beside the asset name, we can specify, I don't know, what the website of the project, and so on and so forth. If you want to touch an image, so on and so forth. This is all stuff that belongs to the real world, the outside world. In order to make the blockchain as lean as possible, whenever we do a token, we just basically specify the policy ID and the asset name. Everything else needs to be stored somewhere else. So back in the days, there was this policy called the CIP26. That was the original token metadata specification. This was like a super simple. We created a GitHub project where we were storing all this information, signing this payload, and then one API, the famous token metadata registry, would be periodically indexing this list and then serve it on an API. Now, obviously, there is a little bit of work involved here. Someone needs to create a pull request on the project. Someone else needs to review and vet somehow the information, then press a button, and then within 30 minutes, this data would go live on the API, which is fine. But obviously, there are better ways of doing this. Not only, but if we also check at the 68 specification, we found out that there are some limitation. Actually, limitation, we'll see them in a second. Just two words about the actual API. It was originally written in Haskell by IOG, but has been superseded about 1 year ago. About 1 year ago, we migrated. This API is now under the Cardano Foundation maintenance. And has been rewritten in Java. Some of you might remember that pretty much 1 year ago, January 2024, I went through the effort of actually putting it live. And there's been like a joint effort by a couple of engineers at the foundation, but went live in March. And luckily, and touch wood, we haven't heard since. So hopefully also the next release it's going to be like this. So let's jump into the limitations, right? I'm just going to pick up the three biggest one. So the first, well, there is a fourth one, that is the one that I was talking about already, and it's a little bit cumbersome. It takes time to create the standard, the 26 standard, push it on the GitHub, ping someone at the foundation, hey, can you merge this thing for me? And then the back and forth if there is anything wrong, and get it merged, and then get it live. So that's a practicality. It's a good process. I actually think that there is it 25 or 26? I think it's 26. Yeah, there is a typo here. That's what's wrong with the 26, not 25. But anyway, actually the 25 is the metadata specification for NFTs. So I think the 26 is more general. But anyway, the second thing is in the 26 standard, the metadata are not upgradable, as in it is not easy to do the update again. You need to change the repo. I don't even know if it is possible. But again, sorry, it's not impossible. It's just difficult and cumbersome. While the 60 is CIP68 that does everything on chain, and we're going to go into the details in a minute. Some details, at least, can be done everything on chain. And then the last and I think the most important one is that there is no on-chain verifiability. So you can't use these datums on-chain. So if you want to write a smart contract that inspect those token metadata standard on-chain, you can't do that because the CIP25 and 26, so for non-fungible token and fungible token, it's everything off-chain. So the blockchain doesn't know it. If you want to write a smart contract that leverage this information, you just can't. So CIP68 to the rescue. I actually going to switch the order. This is going to go above. What is a CIP68? I asked Grok to capture the main things. And it's funny because it did a really good job. It says CIP68 is a Cardano improvement proposal that define standard for managing token metadata using reference tokens. So end user defined data. Basically, what happens is that in CIP68, whenever you mint something, let's put it simple. Whenever you create a new token, you actually create two tokens. One is the actual token, the user token, right? And then there is another token called the so-called reference token. The reference token basically is an NFT, always an NFT, or it should be an NFT, that is guarding a UTXO where the datum is describing the user token. So you can think about this as if there was like a special token that is in the blockchain, and there is that also is referencing a pocket of data with the details about your token. So you can read more details into the presentation that we're going to be sharing. So the second, the additional thing is the reference NFT holds the metadata. There are some things about standards into the name, into the description, so on and so forth, but it's too many details. The most important thing is that for every token compliant to the CIP68 standard, there is the actual token that is user token, and then there is the reference token. The good thing, so the key features, is the dynamic metadata. So metadata can be updated by modifying the reference token, so that you avoiding the need to resubmit the static entries. So it means that you don't have to use, again, GitHub, so on and so forth. Also, the updates, they have a version, so you can reference a specific version, and even the updates are visible on chain. There is no need of signing with wallets, and if you lose the policy ID keys, that's not a problem anymore, as long as you've wrote the contract properly. It's very flexible, support custom attributes, so as long as you specify the standard attributes, you're fine, and you can add your own if you want to develop anything additional to that. And it's very efficient because for once, the centralization actually plays in our favor because it's just one place where you can store all your data, and then it's very easy to index, and we will see this in a minute with Yashi. I need to step back 1 second to the previous slide. Before jumping into the next thing, it's worth to specify that although CIP26 and CIP68 can basically coexist and are compatible with each other in a way, but the CIP26 token specification cannot be migrated easily, or most of the case, it cannot be migrated to CIP68. So we just can say, let's ditch CIP 25 and 26 in favor of 68, because 99% of the project that have done issued their token specification with CIP 25 and 26, they don't have the possibility of issuing the 68 anymore. So those two standards, they have to coexist. And this poses immediately a question, is like, assuming that there is a token that, for instance, has released, first of all, the API needs to cater for both standards. And let's say a token has issued both CIP 26 and 68. How do we go about that? Like, which one wins? If for instance, one property is missing on one side, is not missing on the other. So these are all topics that have been addressed in an RFC. So about a month ago, sorry, wrong link. About a month ago, I issued this RFC on the project. We advertised it on the GitHub as well, on Twitter, so on and so forth, on X, should I rather say, where after meeting with a couple of engineers at the foundation, let me increase a little bit the font. We were asking for feedback. We came up with an initial design, and then we asked for feedback. I'm not going to go through this thing because it's very boring, but I've got only thumbs up, so I guess people are happy with this design. There are 2 points I want to walk through, and the first one being, although I was very clear saying, guys, give me all the feedback you want, I was also very adamant in saying, don't give me recommendation on how to index things, because I'm going to be using Yassi Store, because at least for the token metadata registry, with all the respect for Ogmios, and I see Torts being live, I think Yassi Store is much more straightforward implementation here. So what we need to do and how are we going to be doing it? So obviously, because the CIP68 relies on on-chain minting, it means that at some moment in time into the history, a project minted something on-chain where this information, the token metadata information have been created, right? Unfortunately, there isn't a query against the Cardano node, and we can say, hey, give me all the CIP68 tokens, right? So what we need to do is we need to look at the full history of Cardano and check in every transaction if there is a minting of this special token. We can do this in many ways. There are lots of indexers, but for the specific token metadata registry, because it's a Java application, we decided to use Yassi Store. Someone that is editing the video should add somewhere here, up on the left or on the right, a link to the previous office hours where Satya, the engineer that has been developing Yassi Store, explained what it is. So maybe if you're interested into, just click the link. I'm sure someone is going to add it, and you can know more about that. But let's just have a snippet of how capturing this CIP68 token works. It's very simple. The Yassi Store has a don't forget to subscribe and like, yes. The way this thing works is that Yassi Store, beside indexing the data on the database, so basically opening all the blocks and getting the UTXO and putting them onto the database, on a Postgres database, it also offers you really neat, versatile and very comprehensive sets of event streaming events. So what does that mean? It means that every time a new block is processed, either during the past indexing or the current indexing, when we are at tip, a block is opened and all the transactions are scanned, and so we will have like a number of events are published internally into the application. So we can have a block event where details about the block are propagated, so who signed the block, how many transactions, and so on and so forth. And then there is, for every block, there are going to be several transaction events, obviously one per transaction, included into the block. So if the block is empty, there are no transaction event. If there is one transaction, it's going to be one transaction event, 10 transaction events. And then there are also UTXO events, so on and so forth. There are governance event if a governance action was created. You can check the list on the website. In our case, although the snippets say transaction event, we're actually interested into the UTXO event. Every time a UTXO is created, what we do, we just check the body, check if there is a mint transaction or if there is a token with a special name. I'm going to actually show you the actual code in the end that detects whether or not this UTXO is a UTXO that contains token metadata information. If it does, then we open it up, we unpackage it, and then we process it. And that's the first thing on which I was asking for feedback, and it seems that everybody's happy. The second thing is the API specification. So just roll back to 5 minutes ago in the presentation. There is a chance that both a token has both CIP26 and CIP68. Funny thing, I was using the Fluid tokens, and this is not financial advice, yeah, guys. I'm just taking this token because it's the first one I knew. It had 68. So I checked that out, and these guys have been really good because they issued both CIP26 and CIP68 standards. So I imagined I was just like, all right. So let's assume they were silly enough to make a mistake or to publish one metadata on one side and not publish it on the other side. It's like, how do we reconcile it? So we came up with this concept of priority or sorting or ordering. So basically, whenever you hit the new API that contains all this usual information, you can specify the sorting or the priority of the standard and say if a property appears on both. If the property appears on both, just give priority to the 68 because we trust the 68 more. So I'm not going to go into many details about the API because this is exactly the same as before. It has actually not changed much. But obviously, the thing that is new here is the priority. It's actually now called the query priority. So you can just use this enumeration to say if you want CIP26 to outtrump 68 or vice versa. Obviously, the API has a standard, so you don't have to specify this at every single call, but you can change it. And most importantly, every response will tell you what the priority has been using to sort the algorithms, to sort the metadata. What algorithms has been used to sort the priority, so you know exactly what happened. Now that we clarified this special thing, let's go through the API. This was the spec that we came up a few days back, and it is almost identical to what was eventually implemented. So the core part, so we were made aware about the fact that our API, already the token metadata registry, was giving back a lot of information, wonderful. But often most of the information wasn't necessary. So we've been asked, along with all the nerdy, geeky thing, can you just tell us the bare minimum so that the parsing is going to be very straightforward. Then if you want to add all the signatures, all the other things, just put it somewhere else and nerd people is going to be looking into that. So what I did was to, in the full response, just to add the bare minimum. Metadata, decimals, ticker, whatever, and it's there. And then what I've added is a special section with the standards. There's going to be an entry for each standard, CIP26 for the CIP26 or 25 standard, CIP68 for 68 standard, and then here is containing the more detailed thing. I'm going to put a flag behind this that is going to be disabled by default so that the additional requests, the additional information about the standards are there if you want, just flip the flag through. But otherwise, we just return the bare minimum thing so that we also save bandwidth, because most of the people are interested in these things. But if anybody's interested, just flip the flag. Obviously, this new design opens up for new standards. I hope there are not going to be new standards, but someone's going to go like crazy and create another standard. You see, we can come up with CIP300. And the last thing is into the metadata itself, alongside with the value, so decimals, you also know what the source was. So if, for instance, a funny thing, the Fluid Tokens guys mislabeled one of the 68 labels, that is the URL of the website. They called it website instead of URL. So if they actually got it right in CIP68 26, they will see the URL coming from one standard and everything else coming from the other standard if you query by 68. And I think before jumping into the demo, that is going to be possibly broken, because I just changed something it took like 2 seconds ago. This is a good moment if someone has some questions. Just a couple of quick questions, because the proper Q&A session is going to be later. But while I'm preparing the ID and ensuring everything is working, I can take 1 or 2 quick questions. No, there are no questions. Right. So good. Before just doing the simple API call and say, hey, everything is working, I just wanted to show something into the code. The first thing being the event listener. So how the event listener ended up looking. Now, this is going to look a little bit more complex than what it looked before, but the only reason is why I wanted to process it in the most optimal way and save as much space on disk as possible, because Yashi Store can index all the UTXOs, or you can configure it a little bit a la Cupo if you want, and just save the UTXOs you want, but you have to specify what the criteria is. And then the second thing is that instead of check into the snippet on the GitHub thing, I was showing to only check for mint transaction, while that wasn't true. Because if alongside with the minting a new reference token, the reference token can be actually updated so it gets spent. So just checking for mints is not good enough. So what I'm going to be doing is checking for every new UTXO creation. So if a new UTXO is created, check that there isn't an NFT reference inside. If there is, ensure that it has the bare minimum amount of information well formatted, so that the token can be currently processed. So you will see lots of flat map in here, but that's like, if it was for me, it would have been 1 line. But unfortunately, when the standard was created, I'm actually going, oops, sorry, wrong thing. So, what I want to say, when this token was created, there was one thing that could have been added. This is for the more technical people, because the reference token is one reference token for both functional token, NFTs, and semi-functional token. Instead of using just constructor 0, in the example, they could have said constructor 0 for NFT, constructor 1 for FT, and constructor 2 for semi-functional, so on and so forth. So that if data parser like us, indexers, were interested in just collecting them all, you don't need to open the datum to check what are they about. But from the constructor, you could have known whether this was metadata standard, where metadata for a functional token, fungible token, non-functional token, so on and so forth. While what I have to do is I detect this datum, and then I have to open the datum, and I have to try to guess what token is that for. This is for, I think this is fairly technical, but if I had to complain about this, I would definitely complain about this one. So for the future, I really hope this constructor 0 is going to be used more when CIP are developed. But I'm talking too much. Let's go back into the code. So what I'm doing is, for every transaction, for every UTXO event, I am streaming all the outputs. I'm looking for find reference NFT. If it is found, try to pass the datum. If the datum is somewhat well formatted, because guys, people are putting all sorts of rubbish, and I'm being polite, on chain, and even when the datum can be parsed, you need to ensure that the metadata is actually valid. Only after all this screening and filtering is done, you can actually get the reference NFT, parse the metadata, and then slap it on the database. And here there is all the actual step of how the filtering is doing. There is one thing that is important to check. To find the reference NFT, let's check what are the conditions. And it's very simple. It has to be, it is a reference NFT if there is one NFT, exactly one, and its name, so the unit extracted the asset name starts with reference NFT prefix. So this is the special string that defines an NFT. And then obviously after this, you need to ensure that the bytes are done properly, so on and so forth. The very last thing, and I'll promise then I'll do the demo and I'll shut up forever, is the storage. So you don't have to do this if you care about all the UTXOs, right? So just let Yashi do his own thing. And then if you have to index the old database, the old blockchain, you wait a couple of days, 1 day, whatever it is, and you're fine. But if in our case, we just want to keep the footprint as small as possible, and we only care about the UTXOs that contain the CIP68 relevant transaction, well, you have to write literally 3 lines of code. And in our case, you need to care about saving the proper UTXOs. And in our case, it's literally get all the UTXOs that are supposed to be saved and just filter for contains reference NFT. So like if you have a function that does exactly that, that's the 1 line you have to write. And the second thing is the save spend. You obviously have to check that in order to spend the UTXO, you have to be sure that you previously saved it. So you have a proper subset of the history of UTXOs you care about. So these are the 2 lines of code you have to write. And to me, this is extremely powerful because you don't have an extra moving part, which is an indexer, but it's all embedded in your application. And at the same time, it works really well with event streaming. So you just get events as they're coming in, and your logic is all here. So this is, to me, this is extremely powerful. Right, done with the demo. The demo is very, very simple. I'm going to be querying for the fluid token, and this is the response. As I was showing earlier on before, the response contains the subject that is basically subject unit, whatever you want to call it. It's basically the concatenation with policy ID and asset name. Then the action metadata. As you can see now, the format is ever so slightly different because the name of the source is a little bit different, but the concept is the same. The action metadata is as simple as that. So DEX is decentralized exchanges, centralized exchanges, so on and so forth. If they want to get compatible CRPC68, they can use this different endpoint and literally just use the value. But that's it, as simple as that. Description, ticker, decimals, logo, version. And then there is the more verbose section, that is the standards. Obviously, at the moment, the CIP26 is not showing because it's still under development. But if my integration with CIP26 was working, you would see another section here with the standards. And also, eventually, the query priority and says, actually, let's do an exercise here. I've never tested this. But if I change, because I'm not specifying the ordering here, let's see if it breaks. This is the test I haven't done. So someone can add a drum roll effect. This is going to be fun. Query priority. Query priority equals, no, sorry, ship 26 and query priority. Check. 6 days. It's going to break? No. And you can see now it's switched. So 26 is first, and then it's 68. Here's 26.8 and then 26. But because there is no 26, when it finds 26, it can't find it. It's like, right, let me check 68. 68 has everything. And so it outtrumps it. And with this unexpected thing that is working, because I wasn't expecting it to work, I think that's it. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the nice presentation, Gio. So now I think we can stop the recording, and then we can open the floor for any possible questions there.